Hello, everyone. I've wonderful news, everybody. I have COVID, which means I now have tons of free time to do the things that I love most, like make YouTube videos. Today, the 6th episode of Obi-Wan released, or Obi-6, as I would call it. And now that it's completed, it made me think back to one of the first videos I made on this channel, which was titled How to Save Star Wars. That title might have been a little pretentious and or clickbaity. I made that video after Disney announced that they were going to be making a live-action Obi Wan Kenobi series. In it, I kind of went through my thoughts on what I would do if I were in charge of the Obi Wan Kenobi series. And now that the actual series is over, I thought it might be fun to go back and watch that video and see how accurate or inaccurate I was. So, let's watch this shit.
What does it take to become a Force ghost? We'll get into that.
Oh, dang. I had a whole teaser and everything.
Hello, everyone.
Wow. Man, look at all that hair.
What
a beautiful guy. Oh, yeah. It's one of the most generic openings I could possibly think of.
But there's a yin to every yang.
Yang to every yin.
Every yin.
Yeah, that's my writing. For sure.
After watching The Rise of Skywalker, I found myself less than
That's interesting. I didn't know I made this after Rise of Skywalker. I thought that was more recent than this video.
I think Obi-Wan, or Kenobi, or Kenobi 1, a Star Wars story.
I was still making Obi-Wan puns back then? Wow. Nothing has changed.
And so, without further ado, I bring you...
Yeah, I remember that too.
Another egocentric fan thinks he can solve the Star Wars problem.
Wow, right off the bat, you can really tell how much different my performances have become. That's like I wrote that thinking it would be funny for me to perform it in that way. But like YouTube craves that fucking, that realism, you know? You want who I am, not some weird performance. So, yeah, that has nothing to do with Obi-Wan, but I thought I'd bring that up.
Okay, so first let's talk about where to pick the story up.
Let's hear it.
Kenobi should be a slow character study. It wouldn't make sense for this to be some spacefaring, laser-sorting adventure. There's a reason
Alright, so already I'm pretty far off there. A slow character. I mean, the show was sort of a character study of Obi-Wan. There's a little more to it than that. Also, I was adamantly against Obi-Wan going into space because when you find him in episode 4, he's an old hermit. Owen calls him an old hermit wizard.
That wizard's just a crazy old man.
He just seems very much removed from the state of the galaxy in episode 4, so I think it would be weird if 10 years down the line or 10 years before he becomes Ben Kenobi, the one that we see in episode 4, that he would be out in space doing some weird adventure.
You don't ever hear Alec Guinness talking about his wild time slaying stormtroopers over on Utapau.
Yeah.
Because he's an old hermit wizard that lives in some sand dunes and hasn't seen action in a long time.
A long time.
Long time.
So
he has a purpose on being exiled in Tatooine. His story should stay there.
Yeah. So clearly that's not what happened. The show has him go on some spacefaring adventure. But to the show's credit, I think they did that pretty well. I had a lot of trouble working out a way to make it realistic that Obi-Wan would need to go into space. But also the spacefaring and the journey through the stars is a lot of what makes Star Wars work. So my version might have been losing out some by keeping the story contained to Tatooine. But I don't know. Let's get into it a little more. Right. Yoda tells him,
in your solitude
on Tatooine. Training
I have for you.
Training.
An old friend has learned the path to immortality. One who has returned
Qui-Gon.
from the netherworld of the Force. Your old
So I kind of predicted that.
Qui-Gon.
Knew that there would be some Qui-Gon going on.
How to commune with him, I will teach you.
Now we understand what Obi-Wan did in his spare time on Tatooine. So
Sure.
here's my logline. An exiled Jedi, wavering in his beliefs, struggles to commune with the only person that can help him.
Holy shit.
Obi-Wan.
Clearly, there's a lot more to the actual Kenobi show that, released. But that's definitely one of the elements of the show, is that Obi-Wan has trouble communicating with his master. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Now imagine amputating 3 limbs from that sibling and leaving him to die on the base of a volcano. Just because of what?
Wow, I'm so
A difference
smart.
in point of view?
So funny.
Because so let's focus more closely on his arc. To exemplify the journey Kenobi has to go on, let's take a look at a few lines from the prequels and a few from the originals, and note the change.
Now, Lord Vader, go and bring peace to the Empire.
I will not kill Anakin.
The boy you trained, gone he is, consumed by Darth Vader.
You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
Even after hearing the name Darth Vader and talking to Yoda, he still calls his brother Anakin.
There you go. So, call me crazy, but I think this might have been pretty close to what the showrunners for Kenobi actually did. It's downplayed quite a bit in the Kenobi series, but I think that is one of the major points of the show. I just watched episode 6 today, and it was the culmination of everyone's arc. And Obi-Wan, even in the series, was calling him Anakin every time. It was Anakin, 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 Anakin. And today, in episode 6, he called him Darth. He said, "My friend is truly dead. Goodbye, Darth." So he had to come to the realization, it was his character arc, that Anakin is actually dead, and that Darth Vader, and that goes along with what he says in the sequel series, or not the in the original series. So let's keep watching. But
Versus,
How did my father die?
yeah, see,
A young Jedi named Darth Vader.
see, killed him
He betrayed
and murdered your father.
you see the difference there? In the prequels, Obi-Wan doesn't even say the name Darth Vader in the script. In the originals, the two are completely separate entities. So he needs to somehow reconcile who Anakin was with what Darth Vader is.
And if you think about it, like, clearly this is an arc that can be expanded upon. Like, I found a way to do it, and the writers of Kenobi found a way to do it. But, like, it's kind of a really stupid... It's kind of a really stupid arc that doesn't really need to be told, right? Because it's like, this is what anyone would do. This is the only difference between the two characters, that, and you could just assume that this happened over, like, the 20-year gap or whatever. But literally the only thing we had to work with was that he was calling him Anakin in the prequels. And then in episode 4, he's calling him Darth Vader. That's literally it. So that's one piece of evidence to illustrate the point that Obi-Wan has still not reconciled the fact that Anakin has turned into Darth Vader, or that Anakin is dead and was killed by Darth Vader. So yeah, that seems like a natural sort of story to tell between this time, even though it's not totally necessary.
Anakin is dead to him.
Right.
Also, maybe we can add a little bit to the mythos of the Jedi and the Sith. Why are all these guys always talking about points of view?
Anakin,
Yeah, they didn't
Palpatine is
do
evil.
much with this, which I was a little upset about.
You, the Jedi, are evil. Well, then you are lost.
Right.
Versus-
Everyone's always talking about points of view and shit.
Ceased to be Anakin Skywalker and became
Darth Vader.
When that happened, the good man who was your father was destroyed. So what I told you was true.
True. From a certain point of view. See, he's confused about point of view.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
This will allow us to delve into some pretty significant themes. What does it mean to be a Jedi? If you have the power now, why wait? Are the Jedi's heroes, or is it simply an ideology?
Yeah, that wasn't totally explored, which I guess in my opinion is a little bit of a missed opportunity, because they're always talking about points of view, and I don't know, it's story-wise, it sort of diminishes things, right? Obi-Wan, why did you lie to me this whole time? Well, it's all about point of view. You know what I mean? In the original series, it just seems like a cheap way to make Obi-Wan seem not as evil. And then George was like, well, we can expand upon this in the prequels by making it all about points of view. Like, Sidious will say it's a point of view, and then Anakin will say it's a point of view. To do this point of view thing justice, then we need to explore that point of view thing. It's always just going to seem like a cheap writing cop-out until you expand upon it, which is why I hoped they would have done it here. But they didn't. I think I go into why I wish that they did that more. But
Kenobi is in a unique position to retroactively validate characters of the prequel series. I have a list of names
this is
that
something I
think
was.
can serve
Yeah, I
the
wish
story
they
in a
did.
unique
But
way,
let's see.
but also play on the nostalgia that Disney will inevitably want to put in. In no particular order, I'm going to list a bunch of characters and tell you how I think they could fit into the show. Okay, number 1, protagonists, Obi Wan Kenobi, first and foremost. Number 2, Qui-Gon Jinn, taking the form of a Force ghost, and will help us explore the Jedi mythos. 3, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, I want
See?
them to play a minor role in the show. I don't
Fuck.
want it to be too important.
That's
But
hella
there's a bit
accurate.
of an arc. Obi-Wan hands them Luke, and for some reason in episode 4, they suddenly hate the guy and think he's a crazy wizard. And so, yeah, that would be worth exploring. Number 4, Lars. That's right,
Oh.
Lars. Remember that no-legged SOB from episode 2 that bought Anakin's mother to marry her? Yep, he could play a role in how Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru start to hate Kenobi, but also, he's not in episode 4, so there needs to be some kind of gap there.
See, that's something I didn't even really think about while watching the show. I think maybe the writers just tried to get you past it or kind of imply what had happened. Disney started Kenobi off with Uncle Owen already hating Kenobi. And they sort of write it off by saying, well, I mean, you trained his dad and then look what happened.
Like you trained his father?
Which is weird, A, because no one knows that Anakin is Darth Vader yet. We get that reveal in episode 2 that, like, Kenobi didn't even know. But also, it's kind of weird that Obi-Wan would divulge this to Owen. Like, why would he say that, well, his dad turned to the dark side and I had to kill him? And thirdly, we don't get to see that moment. I think that would have been an interesting moment to see. Like, we have flashbacks in the series, so why not have a flashback where Obi-Wan tells Uncle Owen what happened? But I don't know, especially in my story where everything's staying on Tatooine. I think it would have been more interesting to tell a story about maybe this Lars guy. Obi-Wan's refusal to step up and defend Lars, then they start to resent Obi-Wan for not stepping in and trying to save their father or whatever.
Number 5, Watto. If used correctly, I think this can work. Number 6, possible Darth Vader. You're all scoffing now. I don't think Darth Vader should be in this, but remember, this is Disney. Fitting Vader in is probably mandatory.
I kind of hit the nail on the head with that one. Not the Watto thing. I'm thinking of maintaining the story where it stays on Tatooine, right? So I think my idea behind bringing Watto into the story was it would be cool for Obi-Wan to interact with someone that knew who Anakin was. And I think even in my own outline, because he's so old, I think Watto had some kind of degenerative brain disorder. It was just nice for Obi-Wan to just relate to someone that once knew who Anakin was. He's sort of losing it a little bit, and, you know, maybe we learn more about his character, give him more of a moral shade of gray sort of thing. I think that would be interesting. That was the idea behind Watto. Darth Vader, I think I wanted him in the show, but more as like an imposing space presence. I didn't want Obi-Wan and Darth Vader to be having another confrontation where they're having another lightsaber fight, kind of going through the same motions. I thought that would have been kind of stupid. And that's a limitation of my brain. Like, they brought Vader in and it worked really well, and he was an imposing presence and it was scary and it was really good. So, but it was cool that I said that Vader should be in the show, and he ended up in the show. So there you go.
Number 7, Darth Maul.
Oh, this was right after Solo too, huh?
But only
Yeah, to be fair, I think where they were going when they introduced Darth Maul into Solo was, I mean, this is all speculation, but I'm pretty close to sure that they were going to bring Darth Maul into the Obi Wan Kenobi show, and I must have backtracked because we haven't seen Maul since. I'm really glad that they didn't. I think bringing him back in the way that they brought him back was really stupid. That's like extended universe animated series stuff. When you cut a guy in half, he's dead. He fell down a couple 1,000-meter deep pit too. But he's fine, you know? He's fine.
need to be some new characters as well. In particular, I'm thinking of a young slave. This one can be a girl because there's tons of dudes in this cast. And number 9, Madame Evildoer. She's one of the main antagonists of the show, and she's a Jedi. We'll get into that.
How about that?
So, as you can see,
So one of the characters I speculated would happen, because there's not enough females in this cast already, and Kathleen Kennedy's in charge, which is fine, you know, progressive ideals, and it's good to have ladies in your cast. I speculated that there would be a villain, a female villain, that's a Jedi. The Kenobi series gave us Reva, who is a female villain that was once a Jedi, but is actually an Inquisitor now.
the overarching plot is that Darth Vader wants to eliminate anyone with any relation to Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, see, that's cool. I'm talking about providing context, more context to prequel series and the sequel series. Maybe that's part of like the Sith training, where you have to go back and destroy your past to become who you were meant to be, or something like that, which would provide us a little more insight into Kylo Ren, why he's trying to do it. Vader was going to, or was sent a platoon to Tatooine to kill everyone he used to know. Maybe he kills Watto, and that's how it starts. And, you know, maybe he goes to his old family and tries to kill them and can only find Lars and Uncle, or, you know, and then they kill Lars, and then, you know, blah, 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 blah.
This is bad news for pretty much every one of the above-mentioned characters, but it also contrasts beautifully with Obi-Wan's journey of trying to hold on to his memory of Anakin, knowing he might be the only one that can turn him back, to make him see reason.
Something I was glad I'm wrong about is that Obi-Wan didn't know that Anakin was still alive. That's a pretty interesting thing that they added to the show. I just assumed that, like, Obi-Wan would have heard of Vader, so props to Disney for doing that. I thought that was pretty cool.
And finally, Madame Evildoer. She's a Jedi that has been narrowly avoiding the
Riva.
Empire. She flies a broken ship with a damaged R2 unit and crash lands on Tatooine. That droid has been her only friend for years, and the Empire is directly to blame for its death. Once she spots Obi-Wan, she recognizes him. She believes with their combined might, they should be fighting back against the Empire.
Well, how about that? This is something that actually happened in the show. The first episode of Kenobi starts off with the Jedi not crash landing on Tatooine, but on Tatooine already, and asking Obi-Wan for help, and Obi-Wan rejects him. Riva also recognizes Obi-Wan. She knows who he is, so that wasn't too far off base either. So, yeah, I'm not doing too bad here.
Obi-Wan wasn't there for Anakin in his greatest time of crisis, and he won't let this happen again to another young Jedi. He tries to make her see reason, but ultimately fails. She is a microcosm of what he wants to do for Anakin. This will be the solidifying factor that makes Obi-Wan realize there is no redemption from the dark side.
I have a lot of thoughts about that. The actual Kenobi series that Disney made, Riva's already a bad guy. I thought it would have been interesting to have another parallel. Just like he lost Anakin to Darth Vader, slowly starts losing this Padawan because he's refusing to help her. It sort of paints this picture that, like, things are out of your control to a certain degree, which would help him through his journey, you know? Like, it's not necessarily his fault that Anakin turned, and it's not necessarily his fault that Riva is turning. I'm also operating on this premise that Obi-Wan is a failure, you know? He's trying to, no matter what he does, things end up not working out for him. But it's his perseverance that makes his character so compelling.
Qui-Gon is constantly playing devil's advocate. He believes that the boy can still be saved. Anakin is the chosen one. He tries to get Kenobi to reject his life of solitude to fight for the rebellion and confront Vader to turn him back. At the end, we learn the secret to immortality.
That's interesting. So, I gave Kenobi a fuckload of antagonists in this series. You got Vader, you got Riva, you got Maul, and now you got Qui-Gon. Like, Qui-Gon's not a villain, but he's an antagonist. Obi-Wan is trying to come to terms with the fact that Anakin is dead and Darth Vader killed him. And Qui-Gon is convinced that Anakin is still the chosen one and that he needs to be turned back. I thought that would have been interesting because that adds to the whole point of view thing, right? Like, you're so dead set and honed in on your own point of view that you're willing to die for it. But also because Obi-Wan became a master at a really young age. Like, if you remember Star Wars Episode 1, I believe at some point Obi-Wan is just headstrong, saying that he's ready to take the master tests, and the council is sort of not having it. They don't really believe it.
I am ready to face the trials.
Our own counsel we will keep on who is ready.
But that's not really dove into too much in the prequel series. Yes, he was a master, but he was always missing some sort of guidance from a very close and personal master. He still is training to do so. Maybe Qui-Gon is trying to teach him, train him in how to become immortal by playing devil's advocate, trying to sway his point of view. But the only way to become immortal is to be so swayed by your own point of view and to be so self-actualized that you're not going to be driven off your course. And that's what it means to be an extremely powerful Jedi, a Jedi that can become a Force ghost or become immortal. You know, I was dead set on Obi-Wan not leaving Tatooine. In my eyes, that would have been a cool idea. I guess I'm sort of glad they didn't do it. I think what they did was much more action-packed than mine would have been.
He tries to get Kenobi to reject his life of solitude to fight for the rebellion and confront Vader to turn him back. At the end, we learn this.
Maybe he knows that he can't. If he reveals himself, then suddenly he paints a target on everyone's back, which is what he did in the series anyway. Also, he runs the risk of revealing the children, which is, you know, it's kind of a weird thing to skirt around. So
To me, becoming a Force Ghost is the ultimate act of a true, self-actualized Jedi Master. It comes from believing so much in your own point of view that you are willing to die for it. Qui-Gon died believing Anakin was the Chosen One, and that he needed to be trained. He even rejected the Council because he believed so adamantly in his own point of view. Of course he's going to believe the boy can be saved. In Kenobi's life, he has witnessed the exact opposite. His point of view is that you can't be turned back from the dark side, that Anakin wasn't the Chosen One.
Right.
He can't be saved, and he died on Mustafar.
yeah, so wouldn't it
And
be
that-
cool? Wouldn't it be cool if Qui-Gon was, he became a Force ghost because he believed that the boy could, that the boy was the Chosen One and could be saved, and his ghost was just trying to keep that going, keeping that alive. Like, that's what the ghosts do. They just keep their point of view alive. Wouldn't it be cool if that was actually sort of hindering Obi-Wan, right? Like, that was hindering his growth as a master himself. If Qui-Gon was saying, like, go fight for the rebellion, you need to go turn Vader back so that he can come to the good side, and Obi-Wan having witnessed the exact opposite. Do I listen to my master, or do I need to, like, come up with my own point of view? Do I need to realize that there's more going on here? I think that would have been pretty cool to get into. As it stands, they didn't use Qui-Gon too much in the Kenobi series, which was a little upsetting in my point of view. That's kind of sad, but
that his son Luke is the best hope for the galaxy.
yeah.
Kenobi ultimately rejects his master's teachings and forms his own beliefs. Beliefs he ultimately dies on the Death Star in Episode 4 protecting. This speaks true to the ultimate tragedy that is Obi Wan Kenobi. Kenobi's story is one of failure, both in the prequels and in the original series. As a master, he fails Anakin. He fails to see the good in Vader. But his story is not only one of failure. It's a story of perseverance in the face of failure, continuing to breathe and play your role in the universe, whatever it may be.
Failure also, yes.
Yeah, it provides more context again. I think, like,
The greatest.
I have the right ideas here. I think if anything's a letdown about the show is that it didn't provide as much context as I would have liked. You know, it doesn't, like, add subtext or contextualization to the sequel series, the original series, or the prequel series as much as I would want. Broad strokes, I was correct about a decent amount of this stuff, specifically Reva. Like, I knew that there was going to be a female villain because they needed more females in this show. Something I completely missed out on was Leia. And as it stands, I didn't hate that. I mean, I couldn't think of a way to bring Obi-Wan to space without it seeming comical. It's, you know, 60-year-old man is going out to 55, maybe 55-year-old man is going out on more space adventures that were never talked about in the original series. It also seems a little weird that this is going down 10 years beforehand, and, you know, Obi-Wan seems so far out of practice in Episode 4. But no, I'm glad they brought Leia in. I thought Leia it certainly added some things to the original series for sure. Also, broad strokes, I was pretty right about the character arc. The way I saw it, Obi-Wan is a failure. You know, he's a failure in most of the things that he does, which is fine. You're allowed to be a failure. His perseverance is what makes him a Jedi. In the show, the best success is that Obi-Wan manages to bring Reva back from the dark side, which allows him some new hope. In mine, he fails to help Anakin, and then there's this new person that, like, takes the place of Anakin, and he refuses to help her until he starts seeing that she's going down a darker path. Then he tries to help her, and again, he fails. Overall, I think both arcs are pretty similar. If you look at the Kenobi series as it released, Vader and Obi-Wan cross paths a few times, which is something I was just, like, adamantly against when I first made this video. But the actual show's arc culminates in Obi-Wan confronting Vader. He's still calling him Anakin up until that last episode. And then Anakin sort of reassures him that Vader killed Anakin. He said, I killed Anakin, not you.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
And that sort of lets Obi-Wan off the hook. And then he goes back to Tatooine and finds out that he actually helped Reva. And that brings him sort of a new hope. Whereas in mine, Obi-Wan was going to realize that Anakin was beyond saving, right? He's still calling him Anakin, and then through this new character, which ended up being Reva, he was going to realize that there's no coming back from the dark side, and that's how he was going to come to terms with the fact that his friend is dead. He was consumed and killed by Darth Vader. You see how there's like a bit of a gap there. There's a bit of a gap. As it plays in the actual series, Vader is letting Obi-Wan off the hook for essentially ending the person that Anakin was. Whereas in mine, Obi-Wan was going to have to come to that conclusion himself, which makes it more of a personal kind of thing. Also, I think Reva was going to have to die. That was going to be the final big lightsaber fight in mine. It was going to be Reva and Obi-Wan on Tatooine having a, maybe like a night lightsaber fight. Yeah, but as it stands now, I really think that the show did pretty well. I mean, as far as my expectations went, it just goes to show that there's multiple ways to do the same thing, and that's what makes writing a lot of fun. Star Wars is more about hope than it is about like despair and dread. And there was a decent amount of despair and dread in this show, which is something I was kind of aiming for with my own sort of fanfic as well.
But if you're interested in how those minor characters fit in, please let me know in the comments section, and I can make a separate video for you.
Spoiler alert, no one was interested in that. Not bad, not bad. I think I got a few things correct and a lot of things wrong. Obi-Wan in both arcs was going to end up convinced in one way or another that Anakin is now Darth Vader and that there is nothing he could have done to save him. In mine, it was very depressing. Here's a new hope, and that hope's crushed as well, but you have to keep persevering because you're fucking Obi Wan Kenobi. Whereas in the actual series, it was, here's dread, you need to go help, only to have your hope reaffirmed by the person that you failed a long time ago. So I don't know. Which do you think was better? I know personally that the series that actually came out was hell of a lot more fan servicey than mine would have been. But also, I liked it quite a bit, so let me know in the comment section. I don't really know how to end this, so. COVID sucks. Had a fever for a couple days. Wouldn't recommend it. Keep wearing that mask. And stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully I'll see you next week.
Dum dum dee dum dee dee dum 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 dee dum dee dum 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 dee dum dee dum 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 dee dum dee dum dum dum